And I never, even now, I don't see myself as a business owner. I see myself as a chef, as an artist, but not. The business is what I need to do the thing that I love.
What if you don't feel like you're a business person, but you know it is the key to fulfilling your dream? Well, that is the story of Petrina Peart today, and it is a very interesting story.
Yeah.
I'm Toby Lyles.
Maverick Lyles.
My esteemed son, and this is the Voices on the Wind podcast. Today's guest exemplifies what we're trying to do on this podcast.
Yeah, for sure. We also have, and obviously we have past episodes with our newsletter. We just kind of recap those, and then we have our thoughts on them, as well as just fun stories, and a lot of fun stories from the past. So if you have not checked that out, that's votw.substack.com. And if you have anyone else think would also be good for the podcast, or just have any thoughts, just reach out to us on our social media, and we'd be really glad to hear from you.
Yeah, and now with Petrina Peart.
I think it both starts in Wyoming. I mean, it's two different stories, but they both start in Wyoming.
Which you're not from Wyoming.
No, I'm not. But I would say the passion started in Wyoming.
Oh, wow.
Before I even realized it was that. And then coming back, the business accompanied with that passion that started here.
You've told that story of how you, on a handful of other media outlets, way more famous than mine, about how you've fell in love with cooking. But do you mind giving us the recap?
So, it really started, like I said, out of a necessity, the need and the love for cooking, just being in the military. And Cheyenne here was my first base in the Air Force. And so, being away from home and having the holidays, it just kind of led to me learning how to cook for myself and experimenting and things like that. And so that's where it started, almost out of necessity. And then as I moved to different bases, Turkey and then in Italy, it really became even further away from home now. And now, we're all doing potlucks for Thanksgiving because we're all away from our families. And so by then, I had a few recipes under my belt that I was like, okay, I'm good at some of this, And Italy is a great place to fall in love with cooking and with food. And so I would cook and I would experiment with something and I would create something. And when people enjoyed it, I just fell in love with that enjoyment of them with my food. I just thought, okay, well, this is something I do and I'm starting to like it. And it seems to make people happy and that makes me happy. So that's really where that passion came from, to say, okay, I think I know what I want to do next.
Okay, so you're in Wyoming, you're in the Air Force, you start to fall in love with cooking, and then where?
So after that, I went to Turkey for 15 months.
Yeah?
Yeah. Did not have my own kitchen there. We had a communal kitchen, so there wasn't a lot of personal cooking happening back then. But there were some cooking experiences. We would have barbecues or something like that, and we'd do potlucks. So the few times that I could then, it's funny because years later, I had someone reach out to me and ask me for a recipe for a salsa I had made when I was in Turkey. And I was like, okay, I'll do my best to remember, but I can't possibly remember exactly what I did, know? But that was and this was over 5 years ago at the time they asked me, probably close to 10 years ago. And I'm like, I'm going to do my best to try.
Yeah, but they remembered it for 5 years.
Yeah.
Wow, so it must have been.
Yeah, it's true. And it's funny how food can evoke that kind of emotion from people. I one time made someone cry with a pesto.
No.
And it was so it was the first time and I didn't know how to react. And so it was such a beautiful moment. Because you ever seen Ratatouille?
Yeah.
The movie where he takes a bite of the ratatouille when he gives it to him and he's immediately transformed and he's transformed to his mother's table. And it was like him in the countryside when he was a young boy eating his mother's. So it's like that kind of moment that we had where he had the pesto and his dad is a chef or was a chef when he was young. And so it just transformed him. I think he had one of those like ratatouille moments where he transferred. Yeah. And then he like just, it was just such a touching moment. It brought tears to his eyes. And that just like made me realize the power of food, you know? It's the only, food is the only art that incorporates all five senses. And I always tell people that because you can literally transform someone's mood and their entire being with a meal.
So you're in Turkey. So then you went straight to Italy, and I think you said, well, how did that change anything in the story, or is that just growth?
In Italy?
Yeah.
You know, it opened me up to a lot more than what I had experienced as far as like going to the marketplaces and seeing all the artisanal breads and foods and cheeses and meats and, you know, that it blew my mind, the food there. And so I think that really solidified. And then at that point in my career, I had to decide, okay, am I going to re-enlist? And if I do, that's going to put me over probably at 12 years in the military. And I feel like once you get past that 10-year mark, 20 years seems easy.
Yeah,
you know?
just keep going.
Right? You're already halfway there.
Yeah.
And so I was almost at like a fork in the road where I had to decide, okay, if I go, I'm going to do 12 years and then I might have to think about doing the 20. And if I get out here at 8, then I can still, you know, transition to something else that this cooking thing was growing into. And so I extended for 6 months because I wasn't sure what to do.
Oh, wow.
So that's where the 8.5 years come from.
Had you done anything, you know, professional for money, commercial, or was it just all friends at that point?
Oh, no, it was just all friends. So I had not cooked professionally at all.
Were you, what a huge decision. Yeah. Like, do I leave this solid career that
Pretty solid.
Awesome at, I'm sure. And friends, good relationships. To what were you thinking? Were you thinking of business or just get a job?
I was not thinking of business. Okay. I just knew, and I wasn't even thinking I wanted to be some big time executive, anything. I was only thinking I really like this thing that I do and it makes people happy and that in turn makes me happy. And I like this feeling and I want to hang on to this feeling. Oh, wow. And if I could find a way to do this as a career, I think I would be happy. And so that's what I was chasing. Only that.
So important. That is so important though to know what makes us happy.
Yeah.
And then to I feel like that's the heartbeat of what we're trying to talk about on the podcast, or, you know, that you found what makes you happy, but you went after it. Even though you had an Air Force career going, how in the world did you have the courage to go after that? Why? I mean, because we all love stuff.
Yeah.
But to pull the trigger.
You know, I don't know. And there are so many moments in my life that's like that. And I can't tell you what it is about me that makes me do that, because going to France, that was another decision like that, like to just up and go and have not knowing anyone over there. Wow. So there are a lot of times in my life where I come to these decisions. I don't know what that thing is that makes me decide to say, I'm just going to go for it. You know what? Maybe I'm afraid of not going for it.
Oh,
maybe that's what it is. And I think, you know, if at least I can say I tried, I guess. You know, it was just something in me that I thought, well, I have this GI Bill because prior to that, I was studying English literature. Like I wanted to write. I wanted to study journalism.
While you're in the military?
Yeah. Okay. I was taking classes for that. Yeah. So it was like, it was even a switch completely. So, you know, I thought, well, I have this GI Bill and I found this thing, and I said I wasn't going to get out of the Air Force unless I had a plan. So that 6 months that I extended, I thought, okay, well, if I can plan it out and leave with something, then that seems more stable to me.
Tell us about that plan. How strategic was this?
So when I first decided, yes, I was going to get out, I actually wanted to stay in Italy. I was hoping that was something that would be possible for me to do, but it didn't work out that way with the GI Bill and how it was set up. So it was like, okay, I have to go back to the U.S., especially because the citizenship thing becomes different when you're not sponsored through the military. Now you have to find a sponsor and create a whole different, it's a whole different visa, right? So it was decided, okay, I am going to go back to the States. And then it was trying to decide where to go to culinary school.
Because you've got the entire United States open to you.
To choose from.
Yeah. Wow.
And, that was just, I guess you could say I did some research, but it was just a matter of like Googling different culinary schools, where they were, and then deciding where I wanted to live. Because my mom, my sister, they were all still in Maryland because that's where I joined the Air Force. So they were all still on the East Coast. But somehow I knew I didn't want to go to Maryland. I wanted to go to one of the bigger cities because I thought, okay, if I could go to culinary school there, if I could learn to cook there, Miami, New York City, Chicago, Las Vegas, if I could learn to cook there, then I could probably survive anywhere else, as far as like the mass and the tourists and all that, right? So when I discovered Le Cordon Bleu, I thought, this school, it had prestige back then, and I thought that's where I want to go, Le Cordon Bleu. And they had one in Las Vegas, and I thought, well, that was one of my top 5 cities anyways, of places to go. So they just matched up, and I thought, even though my mom's in Maryland and my sister's in Maryland, I'm moving to Las Vegas by myself, and I'm going to culinary school. When I tell my story, it sounds like I've always been a risk-taker. When I'm in the middle of these things, when I'm going through this, I don't always look at it as taking a risk until I look back on it. And then I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe, I got out of the Air Force on just a feeling and a thought and moved across the United States with 2 suitcases to a state where I didn't know anyone, to go to school and live by myself without any support. When I look back on it and I say it out loud, it sounds very crazy. But in the moment where I'm thinking about it and I'm making that decision, it seems very logical to me because I've looked at it and I thought, and somehow I can see the pattern of how this would make sense. And so I do it.
It's just the next right step.
It's the next right step. It just makes sense, Yeah. And then when I share the story and someone says, okay, well, that was a risk. What made you decide to do that? Then I'm like, was it really? Okay.
It's a good point, though, because, there's there's risks and then there's calculated risks.
Yeah.
And it is a risk, but it's also a risk, as you mentioned with the Air Force, to not move.
Yeah.
To not jump into culinary school is to stay in the Air Force for 20 years.
Yeah.
So our decisions are risky either way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So I could see Italy being, of course, a main driver for the love of food.
Yeah,
and
of course.
A great reason to stay in Italy if you could. It's too bad the GI Bill didn't work over there.
I know.
With the visa. Yeah, I would go for that one. Okay, so then you moved to Vegas, which is not Italy at all.
No.
Then you go through school and immediately started a business afterwards. It was amazing.
No, that there was there's a whole nother few chapters in between that. So I'm in culinary school. I'm working full time. Working in the industry, I always felt like I needed to catch up because I was close to my 30s. At the time. And I thought, well, everyone my age has some rank in the kitchen, and I'm just starting. So I always felt like I needed to catch up, And so I was like a sponge back then. I would always if there was something that needed to be done, I want to volunteer to do it. I want to get that experience out. So I worked in different kitchens. I think at one point I had collectively 4 jobs. And this was right before I went to France. And it was right around that time, actually, that when I decided that I would take a break from the restaurant industry and just focus on trying to do these pop-ups that I was mentioning earlier, where it was like the culinary underground of Las Vegas.
Which sounds like the coolest thing in the world.
So we would have different chefs that would host different pop-ups in different venues, not always a restaurant, sometimes someone's home, someone's backyard, anywhere from 3 to 7 courses. And just like you could collab with different chefs to do it, or you could just, invite people to your home to do it. And so I fell in love with that scene, and I started doing that same thing at my house. And it had reminded me of one of the dinners I went to when I was in Italy. This lady, Rafa, she sold wines on base, and she would have these monthly dinners, and she would invite couples and different people from base. And so when you got there, it was a table for 12, but you didn't necessarily knew who you were going to be seated next to. And just in her home, so you got to, you were introduced to people you probably would have never met had you not come to this dinner, right? And so in her home, she would cook course after course, beautiful Italian food. And you just sat there and had ossobuco and ravioli, and it's all fresh and it's all coming out of her kitchen. And so that, when I fell into the culinary scene in Vegas, it reminded me a lot of those dinners and how the unpredictability of bringing people together. They don't know each other necessarily, but you know all of them. And by the end of the night, they'll all know each other too. So I really like that bespoke experience. And so that passion stayed with me even when I went to France and came back. And that's really when I started my business, was after the pandemic. So there was a long time between getting to Vegas and getting to that part.
So the inklings, the dream of it, you saw a vision.
Yeah.
You already had fallen in love with the culinary arts.
Yeah.
But then there's this like new side of it that is this
fine
bespoke
dining,
events, fine dining, community building. And your family moves to Vegas. And then you just went to France?
That's how my mom would describe it.
You were describing it that way?
And she just went to France.
Yeah. Oh.
By the time I decided I wanted to go to France, I was just finishing my bachelor's at the Art Institute.
Okay.
And so when you get to the end of your degree program, they have what's called the internship, externship. Okay. In the culinary world, we call them a stage. And it's
a word that I did not know earlier.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it is, an internship or an apprenticeship, to work in, whether you can choose a specific chef to work for. Because I did that before. In the time I was in Vegas and cooking and all that, one of those jobs, I was a stagiaire for one of the chefs that was in charge of quite a few restaurants, and I wanted to learn from her. So I offered my services for free. Sometimes you get paid, sometimes it's free. But the point is to learn from that person or from that company. So by the time I was finishing up my bachelor's, I was due for another stage. The first one I did for my associates, I went to Jamaica for 6 months in Montego Bay, Sandals Resort. And so as I'm finishing up my bachelor's, I'm due for the second one, which is, at the time I didn't know where I was going to go. I could have stayed local in Las Vegas. I could have gone anywhere. But for me at the time, I was working for someone who made me realize who had a lot of culinary experiences outside of the U.S. And it made me want to explore that option again. And so I thought, why not try to go to France? And so got on Google.
No.
Did a Google search.
Wow.
Like all my important decisions.
I figured you'd be like, ask one of your famous chef friends. And they'd be like, go to this school.
No, I didn't have any famous chef friends. And, looked into how I could do like a stagiaire internship, anything like that through that. found a list of requirements that looked long and never ending, but I started with just one thing off that list and checked all the easy ones off and just took it one task at a time. And it seemed impossible at first because you need a visa to go to France, and it seemed impossible at first, but as I just kept crossing things off the list, it became more and more possible.
So great training in Bordeaux. And then at some point in the story, you land back here in Wyoming.
Yes.
Yeah. When you landed back here, were you intending on starting a business here?
No, I was not. No, I didn't even plan on staying when I came here.
Oh.
It was just everything was being affected by the pandemic. And so it was just when I came back to Wyoming was the end of March 2020.
Right.
So things were full swing shut down. So I was really coming out here just to I guess rest and just find some reprieve from just the craziness of what was happening. And I had friends and I was seeing someone out here. So it was just a cozy little getaway, so to speak. And then things just kind of stayed shut down. And, I think like a lot of people, you have time to think and you have time to sit still. And with that, thoughts and trying to figure out, okay, well, once this is all over, what's next? And that's a question I tell you that's like perpetually in my brain. What's next? What's next? What's next? And so it was, okay, well, I'm kind of being forced to sit still for a moment. What do I want to do? And I thought about all the pop-ups and all that stuff that I was doing in Vegas. And I was like, I would love to do something like that and do it full time. And so that's when I decided to get the LLC for Gaiya's Harvest. That was October 2020 that I signed up for that.
Was that scary?
It was scary because I didn't know what I was doing back then. I mean, sometimes I still don't feel that way now, but back then especially, the start of anything is scary, right?
Yeah.
And I'm having to figure out what even is any of this. What does it mean? What licenses do I need? Am I making the right things?
Started a business,
no, this was no, I'd never.
Yeah.
And I never, even now, I don't see myself as a business owner. I see myself as a chef, as an artist, but not. The business is what I need to do the thing that I love.
Well said.
Right?
Yeah. It just provides a path for us to do our dreams, to do our passions.
Exactly. For a while, I didn't feel like I had anything because no one was entertaining.
You started an entertainment business. Exactly. Especially food, right?
No one's inviting people over during this time. So what I actually did was set up a virtual cooking classes so that I could do something that way. And set up for corporate. So everyone was work from home at that time. So you could set up corporate team building cooking classes, things like that. So it wasn't just like one-on-one. It was like maybe a group of 40 people that wanted to do something that felt, interpersonal because everyone's secluded. So I set up the virtual business to accept things like that. But this is now fast forward to 2021 because that was at the end of 2020. And things are starting to open up again. So I get one dinner.
Oh.
And this was my first dinner as a registered business.
Wow.
Is on base.
Perfect. Couldn't be better. I don't know how this happened.
Right? And I'm like, how funny is that? That's
cool.
the first thing I'm getting, and it's on base. And it was one of the officers' houses. So I was like, okay, this is pretty cool.
You're teaching classes, but that doesn't mean that you're...
I don't know how they found me. Maybe Instagram.
Were you posting?
Yeah. Yeah, because at the time...
Meals that you were doing, or...?
Just food I was cooking at home just to cook. I was cooking and taking pictures just to do it, just to have something to do during the day.
You're not like being a marketer, fancy. You just, this is what I like.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
And so I think, and I credit Instagram for a lot of things actually, for just putting myself out there and then the right people finding me. And so I did my first dinner there. And from there, posted about that, kept posting and cooking. And that's how Bobby Flay found me, was through Instagram actually. Okay. And so that was around August 2021. So it was around like just a few months later where the Bobby Flay thing started happening.
Okay. So that's the whole TV side, right? And so that just, they found you.
On Instagram.
On Instagram. Oh my goodness. How did that feel when you got that? Was it an email or like an Instagram DM?
Yeah,
how did they do that?
Yeah, it is a DM actually. Yeah. From one of the producers, they'll reach out and say, we saw your profile. We think we've been following you or something, and we think you'd be great for this show or that show. We're casting. Would you be interested in talking to producer? And so when you first get that DM or any DM, of course you have the eyebrow raised. You're like, this is a scam or something, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't 100% believing that it was real at first. I did take the phone call.
Okay.
I talked to someone.
So you responded
found
to this.
the legitimacy. Yeah.
All right.
And then
good move.
Yeah. And then another phone call, and then next thing you know, it's like a Zoom interviews happening, and it start to become real because you start, seeing the realness of it. So, but yeah, that started with Instagram. I would say what really got me into the Cheyenne crowd was a pop-up I did at the Paramount just before I went to shoot that Bobby Flay episode.
Okay.
And it was a 7-course vegan pop-up I did back when John and Renee were the Paramount owners. And so we did that 7-course pop-up, and I wasn't sure people were going to show up because it's a vegan menu and it's Cheyenne, Wyoming, right? And this was a few years back. So, but it actually had a really good showing for the 2 days that we did it. And from there, I got to be introduced to a lot of the local clients and stuff like that. And I think from there, I did one dinner, and that one dinner led to another. And then just like domino trickling effect where each event leads to the next and to the next. And next thing you know, it was just like word of mouth became the biggest thing that was working for me here in Cheyenne. Not the Instagram. Instagram was giving me like, the other attention, but it was the word of mouth and the collaborative efforts like the pop-ups that I was doing in town that really got me the attention that kept my business going.
Super fun episode. Really, just her, just like deciding to choose like something like safe, like a safe job, and just following her dream and doing something big. Then like, I don't know, that's a cool business. I think it's cool. She does super fun things, and it definitely shines through. The dream definitely shines through. So I really cool.
Yeah, you mentioned safe. One of the things that really struck me was that she said that the risk was not, everybody asked her, why'd you take all these risks? And in retrospect, she's like, yeah, it was a risk. But she's like, it just made sense at the time. It's calculated. It was the next step.
Yeah.
So really appreciate that interview and the wisdom from that and just your story. So Petrina, thanks for sharing and exemplifying what we're trying to do on this podcast. All of us is move to that next stage where we're listening to the voices and the crazy voices in our head. No, that voice, that idea, and we're acting on it. So until then, my friends, happy sailing.
Nice.